Welcome back. For those of you who have not finished the questionnaires, not to worry, we'll get them before you leave, okay? But in the interest of time, we want to move forward. What we're going to do now is to have a brief presentation from Elise. It's going to be about 10 or 15 minutes. Some people like to take notes, I know. So if you are someone who likes to take notes about presentations so that you can remember questions, things like that, please feel free to do so, okay? After Elise is done presenting, we're going to do a brief activity and then we'll break out into discussion groups. Questions? Everybody have what they need? Beautiful. All right, Elise.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. And first, I want to thank you all for your patience in filling out a very long questionnaire. We will look at all of those questions and we will use that information. So, what I'm going to do next is walk you through some of the market research that I've done on senior housing. If I speak like this, is that better than, yeah, that's better. So it's about the microphone. Okay. In the back, Robin, can you hear me? Yes. Does your friend in blue, can she hear me? Awesome, great. Okay, so as I mentioned to you all earlier, I'm currently an MIT student and I'm also interning for a nonprofit called Jewish Community Housing for the Elderly. We are an independent subsidized housing provider located in Brighton, Newton, and Framingham. In order for us to better understand new ways to innovate in senior housing, we had to start with a baseline, what's currently out there. And that's where market research comes in. So what I'm going to present to you now is market research that I conducted in the greater Boston area this past summer. Okay, and I'm going to take questions at the end. So you've got your notepads. If you have questions and they come up as we go, write them down, and then we'll revisit it at the end. Okay? So first, to give you an idea of where we're looking, and the folks that I'm blocking, can you still see over my shoulder? Kind of. Yeah? Great. Okay. So we're looking at a 24-town area in the Metro West region, as it's referred to, just west of Greater Boston. As far west as about Marlborough and Hopkinton and Framingham, as far north as about Lexington and Concord, and as far south as Westwood and Sherborne. So that's the geographic area that I'm pulling my data from. In sum, over the 3 months of many phone calls, the database that I collected amounted to about 100 properties. And the breakdown of the different senior housing options that I found in this geographic area don't add up to 100, as you'll see on the projector screen, because some of the campus communities offer more than just one type of housing. They might offer assisted living and independent living. So what I found is that 71 properties offer independent living, 56 offer assisted living, and there are 10 continuum of care or CCRC properties, with an additional 2 that I didn't note here, with a new innovation called a virtual CCRC. And these are properties that are coming together to make legal agreements that they'll make a bed available for a partner property, even though they are not located on the same geographic campus. Then looking at ownership, I found that about 94 properties offer rental options, and 10 properties offer a buy-in or co-op option. Again, these don't add to 100 because some of these co-ops and buy-ins also offer a rental option. In sum, the properties range significantly in their size, but on average they were about 100 apartments. So first, I'm going to share with you the pricing data and descriptors of the characteristics of each of these communities according to rental communities, and then I will explain the CCRC entry fee communities. So I realize that this screen is small, so I'm going to read out to you the numbers on the screen so that you can actually know what's up there, since it's very small in the back. Exactly. So all the way on your left, my right, is the independent living option with no amenities, and that's really your bricks and mortar senior housing option. There's no meals, there's no housekeeping, there's no resident services coordinator on site, there's no transportation. It's just a safe place to live, and in many cases these are subsidized properties, and so they are deeply affordable, often asking seniors to only pay 30% of their income. So the pricing, the maximum cost that I found for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and all of these pricings that I'll be presenting to you are based on 1-bedroom, 1-bath. The maximum is about $3,000. The median is about $1,500 monthly, and the minimum is about $700 a month. And those are for the deeply affordable, subsidized 1-bedrooms. The next category is independent living with amenities. And by amenities, I mean meals and housekeeping. These are your Waterstone at Wellesley's or your Cambridge, your Cadbury Commons. I believe that you guys offer independent living. And this is more expensive because you are adding on to the bricks and mortar cost of where you live, meals and housekeeping. And so what I found is the maximum price that you're paying would be $8,500 at a property, and I haven't labeled any of these properties to keep them anonymous, but that's the most expensive I found. The median is about $6,000, and the minimum I found was $3,300 for independent living with 3 meals a day, housekeeping, social activities, transportation, but the key thing is no personal care, which brings me to my next category, which is assisted living. So now we're in the third column here. This third column, assisted living, is almost the same as what we just discussed, independent living, and the pricing is somewhat similar, in fact even lower, because these assisted living properties, there are very few of them, price their personal care a la carte. They do not include it in the monthly fee. And so even from far away, you can see that there's a drop. And my hunch is that some of their margins are coming from personal care. And so you can see that what they do, and I'll show you on the next slide, is they're charging a significant amount for personal care a la carte in addition to the monthly fee. And so for these properties that charge a la carte, I found that the maximum cost for a 1-bedroom is about $6,900. The median is about $5,900, and the minimum is $3,500. Now the last column, assisted living including personal care, is everything that you could possibly want, kind of all in a complex. So you're getting your 3 meals a day, and your housekeeping, your activities, your transportation, and typically 45 minutes to an hour of personal care, all captured in your monthly fee. The maximum that I found is $9,300 per month. The median is about $6,400, and the minimum is $4,200 for assisted living in this greater Boston Metro West area for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. To show you how that breaks down across the different towns, you'll see significant variations. All the way to your left is the Dedham, Newton, and Needham cluster. I found that that cluster was the most expensive, both for independent living and assisted living. That median price for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath is $6,000. In contrast, the least expensive options were Boston and Arlington Somerville as a cluster, all the way to the right, and those were about $1,300 to $1,400 per month. A very, very big difference. And these properties to the right, they're mainly subsidized properties. I want to point out to you that the 2 town clusters in the middle, Concord, Lexington, Lincoln, and Marlborough to the left, and Waltham and Watertown to the right, both have stars on them. They have stars on them because each town cluster only had 2 properties, that's all I could find, one at the high end and one at the low end. So in fact, they don't have properties falling at the $4,000 per month range. Those are just averages. In looking at assisted living, it's more apples to apples, we could say, because I could only find one subsidized market assisted living property. And so really the pricing varies, but far less. Again, our wealthiest community cluster is Dedham, Newton, and Needham at $6,500 per month median. And our least expensive is the Ashland, Hopkinton, Sherborne, and Westwood cluster at $4,400 per month median. So some geographic variation, but certainly far less than the variation in independent living. So what I just reviewed for you were pricings according to rental properties. Now I'm going to present to you the entry fee properties, which are very different. And the way that an entry fee works is it's a ladder of care that you go up once you enter into a property. So many of these, like Linden Ponds that I learned about from Maggie today, has independent living, assisted living, and a skilled nursing facility on site. And Linden Ponds does not have assisted living, but most CCRCs do. What's interesting about CCRCs in Massachusetts is they're not regulated. Typically, the way that they work is you give a very significant upfront deposit, often upwards of $200,000, and then you pay a lower monthly fee. So these properties operate with far less debt at the property level than the rental communities do. Upon move out, whether you choose to move or it goes to your estate, typically 90% of your upfront fee is refundable. So that's the way that the entry fee works. And what I found is that there are 9 buy-in or entry fees, sometimes these terms are used interchangeably, options in this 24-town area, and there's 1 cooperative, Fox Hill Village. And amongst these, there are 8 nonprofits and 2 for-profits. The sizes of the entry fee communities are almost double the size of the regular independent or just assisted living communities because they offer more than one type of living option. We'll have assisted living and skilled nursing, or independent living and assisted living, or all 3. So they're significantly larger. In looking at the pricing for entry fees, you can see in the buy-in or entry fee column here what the options are, again, for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. And I don't have it on this slide, but in calculating the median really quickly, it's about $360,000 is the median upfront cost to move into an entry fee community. And the median monthly rental is about $3,000. So $3,000 is significantly less than what we saw for the rental communities, but what's different about these entry fee properties is they're more like independent living because that monthly fee includes food, transportation, housekeeping, but does not include care. And I'll show you on the next slide how they charge separately for personal care. And one other thing I want to point out is that almost the hallmark of these entry fee properties is that they do have a skilled nursing facility on site, which they market as a peace of mind, that you know that once you move to that community, you will be cared for through all care at all times, whether it's a long-term move to the skilled nursing facility or if it's just a rehab one-month move, that you have the peace of mind knowing that you'll be cared for in these communities. And the one outlier on this list is New Horizons at Marlborough at $30,000 for their upfront entry fee, and that's because they are deeply subsidized by the Cummings Foundation. So that's not a real option in the marketplace more generally. So now, personal care. Excuse me. Personal care has been a really significant opportunity in growth for me because my background is in affordable housing, and I don't know much about healthcare and home care until I started digging into what is senior housing, what are the needs of seniors, and how do we provide it. This is a whole piece of the puzzle that is crucial to the success of any community. And it's really what gives residents the peace of mind knowing that they can go day to day, live their lives, and have someone that they can depend on, whether it's a neighbor or a staff member, that this is the key part of senior housing. So let's look at some of the ways that it's priced. When you pay a la carte, the range in options is substantial. You can find personal care as inexpensive as $16 an hour and as expensive, especially on weekends and holidays, as $40 per hour. But in general, it's in the $26 to $32 per hour range. What's interesting is that when you move into a senior housing facility, you can typically purchase 1 hour of care or more, or it's included. What I found is that when you're living at home and working with a home health agency, you have to purchase a minimum of 2 hours. So even if you don't need 2 hours, because of the time it takes for the home health aide or personal care attendant to come to your home, they have to charge for that and it has to be worth their while. So there seems to be a mismatch about time of day and demand when you're staying at home, and I'm really curious to hear from you all in the small focus groups what you think about personal care and how we could deliver it better and how it's delivered in senior housing facilities. So some of these senior housing facilities price it very differently. At the Commons in Lincoln, they differentiate between light care and heavy care with no real explanation of how many hours that is involved. It's really at the discretion of a conversation, I believe, between the client and the staff. And then in other cases at properties like Carmel Terrace, Wingate, and Orchard Hill, they do actually say for 3.5 hours of care per week for the month, it costs $400. And then it graduates up as your care needs go up. One other really interesting option for personal care is something that North Hill is offering, and that's called a life care option. So if you pay $44,000 up front to North Hill and about $1,000 per month, they will provide you as much care as you need for your life. And you're not looking at specific amounts of hours at specific times and specific years. It's just kind of your upfront payment and a steady monthly payment all the way through. So that's one other interesting option, in addition to a la carte, in addition to these monthly plans that some senior housing providers are creating. So why is looking at long-term care really important? Because of affordability. The nonprofit that I work for provides housing to a deeply low income population. I would say almost 90% of our population is dual eligible, which means that they are eligible for Medicare and Medicaid, and so they are participating in government programs to receive their personal care. And you can see where that income falls off the cliff on this chart here. And I know you can't see the different programs, but what you really need to see is this gray dashed line coming through. This is where your income exceeds the income allowed by the Medicaid waiver programs, the home and community-based services waiver programs. And in Massachusetts, that's about $26,000 per year right now. So if you make more than that, then you've exceeded the income eligibility requirements and more likely the asset requirements to get government program support. You are private paying pretty much across the board once you're above that income limit. When you're below it, then you might be qualified for some waiver programs, or you may be qualified for more general mass health, SCO, PACE options. So the folks that are in between, when they make a little bit too much to qualify for government programs, but not quite enough to really be able to afford to private pay, we're looking to find new options for them. And how do you do that at home or in a senior living community? And we're trying to figure that out. So if you have ideas to share with us about how we can price or provide personal care differently and in a way that serves those folks in the middle, I'd really love to hear from you. And then finally, when we're thinking about affordability, not only are we thinking about personal care, but we're also thinking about what services would be included in your monthly fees when we're thinking about what types of new housing to build. So I used something called the National Elder Economic Security Index. It's a mouthful, which was created by the UMass Gerontology Institute to better understand what seniors spend their monthly household budgets on. And so according to the Economic Security Standard Index, seniors spend about 35% of their income on housing, about 13% on food, and about 14% on transportation. So when we're thinking about a potential monthly fee for housing in the future, what is the senior's income and what is 62% of that, and how much can we do with that money? And so some of the things that we're looking at are, well, in addition to housing and utilities, how can we also include the cost of a social worker or a resident services coordinator to be on site to work with the residents? how can we include in that fee activities to keep everyone's mind sharp and engaged and have opportunities for social interaction? And also, in thinking about long-term care, what would be possible if we could have a wellness center on site where you go down to the wellness nurse because you have a quick question and you don't need to go all the way to the doctor. In addition to the housing, what about food? What would it mean to take that 13% of your income and potentially offer breakfast and lunch or breakfast and dinner in the community? And then transportation for getting to the grocery store, getting to your doctor's appointments. How can we capture that in the monthly fee and still make it affordable? So these are the questions that we're exploring given the market research that we've done, and we really look forward to hearing more from you all through the questionnaires and through the small group discussions that are following. So thank you. And now I'll take questions. Yes, gentlemen.
I think you, in that last slide, you want to include, instead of just a resident service coordinator, someone that can also be, when you're dealing with your medical plan, and you need someone to interpret what's going on and what they're offering and how they're supposed to treat you and things of that sort. I forget the term for that.
Repeat. All right, so I'm going to repeat the suggestion from that slide. So Avram, is that right? Yep, Avram had a suggestion that we should consider not only a resident services coordinator, but someone that can actually help the resident interpret their medical bills, their medical plans, and what their eligibility requirements are for certain prescriptions. And so that's a really great suggestion, and I noted it. Thank you. And then, yes, the woman in the checkered vest.
Was the greenhouse living in Chelsea included in one of your charts?
So the question was the greenhouse, it's called I
just know it.
Yeah,
Greenhouse.
the Chelsea, right, the Chelsea greenhouse model, which is an innovative model for nursing homes. It was not included, unfortunately, because this was our geographic area, and Chelsea is up here, lying outside of our dashed lines.
Were there any others within?
There were no other green homes, and actually, the Chelsea green home is the first urban green home, I believe, in the country, and it's a really cool model.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is a greenhouse?
Do you want to explain the greenhouse, or do you want me to explain the greenhouse? Okay, so a greenhouse, I'm not extremely familiar with them, but what I do understand is they're trying to remake the way a nursing home functions to be a more intimate home-like environment. So you have one shabazz, I think they're called a shabazz, that's kind of like your den mother, and she or he cooks for you, helps with the housekeeping, checks in on you, and is your everything. And you are able to roam about. You're not confined to your bed. You have your own room, although it's very small, and they help you bathe. It's just a more intimate environment. You have meals together at the end of every evening, and it's typically, I think, 10 to 12 residents that live in each greenhouse community.
Right.
So it's a really
It's
different
a
model.
suite, actually.
Yeah.
And you have a key so you can come and go as you want.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Sir?
This is very useful, all put together. I'm wondering if it's going to be distributed later, made available to this group.
So the question was, would this presentation be distributed to the group? I think that's something that I'll discuss with my H-Lab colleagues, and then they'll be sure that if we get the go-ahead, that you guys will get a copy. Yeah. I'm going to take it over here, and then I'll come back to you.
I just suggested at Linden Ponds that instead of building the assisted living place, which they haven't built yet, that they have sort of a den mother on each floor so a person doesn't have to move out of their community over to the nursing home. It seems much more reasonable to me to have somebody on the floor who could take care of people's needs. Maybe charge a little bit more for it, be worth it.
So there was some feedback over here that this resident lives at Linden Ponds, and currently, as we said earlier, there's no assisted living, and there was a suggestion to use that Shabazz den mother model instead of building a new assisted living community. And that's something that's absolutely worth exploring. Yeah. Over here, yes.
The percentages of how seniors use their income,
Mhm.
was that based on gross or net?
You know, I'm not sure. I will look into that and get back to you. My hunch is that it would be based on gross.
That was the question.
And particularly because most of a senior citizen's income comes from Social Security, most, not all. And so it's not taxed, or it's taxed at an extremely low rate. So I think it'd be based on gross. Yeah. Sir?
We're talking about all these subsidies, subsections like personal care and so on. Perhaps would not be a bad idea to think back to how things worked, many decades ago when
Mhm.
families stayed together.
Mm-hmm.
And one could perhaps mimic that and try to recreate that to some extent with stimulus and support by government. For instance, if you decided that you would support people to build an apartment onto their home, and if they brought mother back when she was 70, and reconstitute that as a living arrangement, which would take care of all the details of transportation, all the things that the assisted living places have to provide. Families can usually provide that quite easily if they're all together. This
Right.
worked very well on the farm, it worked very well in society as a whole, and it's disappeared to a lot of
Yes.
extent. But it might be encourageable in using that pre-existing structure and
Mhm.
support system to reintroduce the elderly back into it.
Yeah. All right, so Tom here had a really interesting suggestion. He said back on the farm, and I have to say that my grandmother says the same thing, back on the farm. There was an existing, I've never lived on a farm, but she did, and she milked the cows. There was an existing family structure, and if we were to build, I think you might call them accessory dwelling units, that's what they're called today, and attach them to the home, that might be a really interesting way to solve this problem. So it's a yes and response, okay? So yes, that is an interesting option, and it's being explored right now. The biggest hurdle is zoning code regulations that prohibit those types of dwelling units within certain lot lines. The and part, though, is that the baby boomers are very different from your cohort. The baby boomers, from what I've learned, and including the millennials, my generation, we have fewer children, so we have fewer potential caregivers, and we have higher divorce rates, so we don't even necessarily have a spouse to care for us. So our family structure is much smaller, and more constrained than you all were lucky to have.
Well, it works
So
on
the
both
dem-
ends.
yeah.
The children go back home when they get all their degrees before they can afford to live alone.
Right.
And it's not impossible that it wouldn't solve everybody's problem, but it might be a small segment of the population
Absolutely.
who could profit from that and do it with incentive financially.
Mm. So Tom's last point was, couldn't we come up with some sort of financial incentives to get kids to bring their parents home? It's well thought.
I want to piggyback on
Yeah.
what you were just saying. Namely, that you've distributed literature about how many people are retiring every day
Mm-hmm.
for the next 18 years. There are new